All right. Good evening. It's 6:35 p.m. on Monday, October 20th, 2025. My name is Don Gosney, and I welcome everyone to the meeting of the West Contra Costa Unified School District's Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. All members of the public are welcome to speak on any issue tonight that is on the agenda. A lot of government meetings require speaker forms, and the speaker is staring at a countdown clock, telling them when to shut up and sit down. As the recipient of these policies, I've never been all that fond of them. I want everyone from the audience to feel as if this is their meeting, so space allowable. I invite everyone to sit at the grown-ups table. If you have something to say, please get my attention and I'll slot you in. I only ask that whatever you say, that it be germane to the issues at hand and keep it brief. We also offer an opportunity under public forum to speak on any issue under the control of the CBOC that is not on the agenda. Under public comment, with limited exceptions, the CBOC is not allowed to reply to comments or questions. I want to give everyone a chance to speak, so if you have something to say, please raise your hand or get my attention. I will try to call on speakers in the order they get my attention. During staff presentations, please get the attention directly from the presenter. I want to remind everyone that we're being recorded and the system isn't as great as we might like, so when you speak, please speak loudly and clearly so you can be recorded where others can hear and make out what you're saying. The motion is to be made. The maker of the motion and the seconder needs to state their names first so there's a clear recording of this. We need to maintain a quorum of 6 members in the room. We have fewer than 6 for any reason. The way we conduct our meetings changes. If you leave early, or even if you have to leave for a bio break, if we fail to have the requisite quorum, the minutes will have to take note. We can continue to have presentations, but no votes. The goal of our meetings is to conclude our business in 2 hours, but if we need to extend, this will only occur with the consent of the body. If we run out of time, some items may need to be deferred to a future meeting. Please stay focused on our real purpose, to oversee the bond funds and the bond projects. Everything else is just icing on the cake, with the finances and the projects being the cake. 2 of my responsibilities at these meetings include keeping one of my eyes on the agenda, all the while keeping the other eye on the clock, so we can get as much of our work completed and still get us out of here in 2 hours. I try to be liberal in my handling of remote participation and speakers, but request that my good graces are not taken advantage of. I believe it's better to be inclusive rather than exclusive. Okay. Next item on there is the roll call. I am here. Brendan Havenar Doughton.
Here.
Giamma is remote still. Okay, Andrew Butt emailed in, say he will not be able to make it. Andrea Landon.
Here.
In person. Tatiana Johnson is in
Here.
remote. Thank you. Bill Klaus.
Here.
You're in person. Dulce Galicia
Here.
is here in person. Tanya Vargas is remote.
Here.
And did I say Lynn Johnson? She's remote.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Good to see you. All right, we have 5 CBOC members in person. We have 1, 2, 3. Looks like 4 remote. Okay, we do not have a quorum, but we are going to proceed with hearing reports. All right. Item D, the approval of the agenda. If there is no comment or question, we'll proceed with the agenda as presented. Okay. Item E, public comments for items not on the agenda. Items already on the agenda may be spoken on in this section. Speakers must fill out a speaker form with the appropriate agenda item listed. Speaking remotely, the speaker must raise their hand. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes. Do we have any speakers signed up?
Was there?
Not on that.
Not on that? I do not see any hands at this time.
Okay, no public comments. We will turn things over to staff for the staff reports.
Wonderful. As Ellen pulls that up, we just wanted to take a moment to welcome President Reckler, who's here with us tonight in person, and also welcome Trustee Smith-Folds joining us via Zoom. We also have here with us tonight Dr. Moses. So we'd like to extend our welcome to everyone here and take it away.
All right, good evening. Ellen Mahia Hooper here once again for the project status updates for October. We have our standard project list here of Stage Kennedy enrichment under design, Lake Shannon Stage Kennedy enrichment in construction, with additional information about both the design process and construction in later slides. Lake Elementary School, we are nearing a really critical place. We're very excited to be able to open the cafeteria next month.
Wow.
So we are getting really close. You can see we still have protection on the floor, and that's really just to make sure that the finish on the floor is safe during these last put together components. But the stage lighting is being programmed. The plastic has been removed from the dining lighting areas. Previously, you could see that the flooring was done, but like I said, now it's protected again. So really doing the last testing and commissioning of the space so that we can open it for our staff and students very soon. The area behind the cafeteria, so building D is our cafeteria. And on the back side, this is our service access that's available to be able to get in the fire lane, but it's also our staff parking lot that's currently being used by construction, but will soon be turned over to the Lake faculty.
Ellen, I have a quick question.
Yes.
For the lake cafeteria, what's the maximum capacity?
I do not know that off the top of my head.
Something.
Yeah. But I can get that for you next month. We also have the playground structures in for 1st through 6th. This was a really fun process because we, more than 2 years ago, went to the lake students and asked them what kind of play structure they wanted. This is the one they picked. The blacktop has been laid. It's getting striped. This picture was taken before the basketball hoops were installed, but they are installed now.
Real quick question, sorry. The blacktop, what material is that?
Asphalt.
Asphalt, okay.
Blacktop.
I just wanted to make sure because there's other kinds of materials that resemble that.
Ellen, what are the heights of the basketball hoops? Are there different heights or are they all 10 feet?
They're different heights.
Okay.
So we have some that are shorter and some that are taller.
So are any of them 10 feet?
Yes.
Since it's elementary school.
Yes. We have one set that's at 10 feet and another set that's shorter.
They got a couple of tall 6th graders.
It's just great. They need to strive for that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Surprising. My son just passed me up. And he's turning 13 tomorrow. So they get there sooner than you realize. The part of the project that won't be turned over next month is the the walking path and turf field. So that's still under construction. You can see the formwork right here is coming up. So that's the edge of the walking path. So that'll be the concrete edge band that connects the center area will be artificial turf. The outside will be a painted asphalt walking path. And then in the back here, there's also a garden planned. So those areas of construction are going to stay under construction probably into December, depending on weather.
Last question about Lake, hopefully. What kind of lighting system is on the stage? Is it the same kind of standard one as at all the elementary schools?
So we do have some level of theatrical lights at a lot of our elementary schools. I don't recall off the top of my head the exact product that we installed, but this one, LED, offers us a lot more options than previous versions of stage lighting. It's a much more adaptive technology. So the other schools, we don't really have color options. But because LED makes color variation so easy, we went ahead and did that here at Stage.
Okay.
So there are some
Lake.
sliders, Lake. We'll just probably have it at Stage too. But it's more the technology change than us making a deviation for Lake. kitchen is almost ready to rock and roll. We've got all of the equipment installed. We've gone through a preliminary check with the health department. And so we have all of the equipment is in.
I have a question.
Yes.
Who's the cook, or how many people are in the kitchen? I mean, what's the kitchen's? They're gonna be producing hot meals, I presume, and all that good stuff.
They will be producing hot food. It is run by our nutrition services, so I don't have every detail about how much staffing is there. They do some prep. I know our nutrition services has really made a transition towards plated up options. So that means that instead of having everything prepackaged into little individual pieces, that they're actually serving it more like you would do a traditional meal at home. And so they do prep some, and some of it's normally supported by our central kitchen. However, our central kitchen is currently also under construction. So we have our different high schools providing support to our elementary schools. So it could be cooked in different locations and brought to temperature into
But the
this.
funding isn't out of any bond funds. The operation of cost does that come out of bond funds? No, I didn't think so. Yeah, that's.
Food service actually has their own fund, Fund 13, the cafeteria fund, and so they're a
Yeah.
self-contained fund.
But some of the great features that we have in this kitchen, as well as other recent rebuilds, is we do have a walk-in cooler that supports more fresh produce. We have prep sinks that allow that fresh produce to be processed on site. This particular kitchen has a combi oven, which for those that are familiar with it, cook with not only radiant heat, but also steam, speeds up the cook time. Then we have temperature holding. There's roll through units that hold the temperature either hot or cold, depending on which unit you go into. And that's the pass through place where it goes from the kitchen to the serving line.
Since we're on the subject, I mean, are children allowed to take food home? Like, if they don't eat it all, or is their food allowed to go home with them?
No, there's a lot of really specific rules associated with the funding. Food services is federal funding, and there's a lot of rules about that. But our food services team does an incredible job at a number of our sites. Some of our sites have multiple meal services that go even just beyond breakfast and lunch, depending on the program. And so, in fact, I'll do a quick plug and tell you, our food services team has an incredible social media presence, and they post a lot about partnerships with different farms and different things. And so there's some really cool things happening in the food services program around the district.
Is this facility all electric?
Yes,
So that's not a gas range in the back.
that is not.
What is that equipment in the background?
I mean, it is a range, but it's
It's
electric.
electric, okay.
Yeah. It's not gas.
So one of the things I'll share, we were going to mention it later in the meeting, but I know one of the members has to leave a little bit early this morning because there's 2 meetings, is we were floating the idea of a possibility in November to maybe take the CBOC meeting on the road and have it at Lake, because some of these spaces will be opening on November 3rd, and it might be a really great opportunity to kind of combine site visit and meeting. And have it over at Lake, so that not just the pictures, you could see it in person and check out the new spaces that are opening November 3rd.
November 4th. The 3rd is a staff only day, so we'll be using that to get all of the kitchen components up and running, food in the fridge.
We won't get served that.
And you can't take home food.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
All right, Shannon. So Shannon, last month, we had the form work up to be able to pour the concrete. This month, the concrete's there, voila. So we're still moving along with the site work. Same with the trash enclosure area. Last month, we had the subgrade worked out and the framing started, or the form work started, and this month, you can see that the concrete has been poured. and the bollards have been installed. Next is the fencing. So these taller poles are the prepared for the fence to be attached. At Stage, we had a great community meeting. And so since our last meeting, we were able to gather together at Booker T. Anderson. And we had a good turnout for that. The architects presented a lot of the renderings that you'll see in this presentation tonight. So an update on our different phases that we have at Stage. What we're calling phase 0 has been completed. So the structures have been demolished. Phase 1 has been submitted to DSA and we've received back check comments. So we have a scheduled appointment to turn in those comments on October 30th. So we're excited to be able to move that forward. Phase 2 construction documents will be submitted on 10/29. So our big announcement for Stage this month is really the completion of the design process. Now that we have both phases submitted to, or soon we'll have both phases submitted to DSA, the team is really transitioning to support answering any of DSA's questions and then moving into construction once phase 1 comes, we get approval from the state.
Ellen, were there any preservations on the materials like signage or anything of that sort, since Stage is a historical school?
We did say bricks, so they are actually over here. We have them in the building. So we made sure that we maintained the bricks from the site so that we could incorporate that into the site work in the future. So Stage Elementary School update from the community meeting. We presented the color scheme that was the result of the previous community meetings input. So green was added to the selected color scheme as a common comment. Then we also showed different exterior images of the campus at the top. This is a kind of a bird's eye view that allows you to see the administration building and kindergarten building in the front, moving around to the library and cafeteria space with the classrooms in the background here. The Trero is along the top, and for orientation, Cypress is on the bottom. So this is a very similar layout that we've been showing for quite some time. There's been additional refinements to the playground area as well as the building exterior. But the general concept is similar to what we've been showing for quite a few months. We also did a quarterly update to the board. And like I said, the big announcement is really finishing the design and moving it into the DSA part of the process. For Kennedy, we have quite a few different phases here as well. Phase 1.1 is complete. We have demolished the 100, 200, and 500 building. We are working on phase 1.2 right now, and that's under construction. Really, the next few months, you're going to see mostly site utilities. So we'll dig trenches, we'll put pipes in trenches, and then we'll fill the trenches back in. So it's not a really great picture phase of the project, just, being aware, you're going to see a lot of pictures of dirt over the next couple months. But that's what it's supposed to be. And then that gets us prepared for 1.3, which is the new 2-story classroom building, and phases 2 and 3 will be following that with the modernization of the remaining buildings. Right now, we were able to complete the enclosure of the 300 and 400 building with the outdoor covered walkway interacting with these buildings. We had to do some framing and restuccoing to be able to create a waterproof barrier. That's now been done, and the stucco has been painted to match. We still need to paint the edge of the 500 or 800 building on the back. That's the cafeteria space. But it has been fully framed, roofed, and patched. So because it also had a covered walkway that interacted with that building that came down with the demolition. Richmond, we've done all sorts of things. We had a groundbreaking ceremony, which was a lot of fun. And since then we have been removing concrete. Here's a couple pictures from the groundbreaking. We were very appreciative of the band and cheerleaders who came out, as well as all of our dignitaries who gave speeches. And so we enjoyed kicking off that project. Believe it or not, Richmond has a very similar phasing. So 1.1 is our utility and site preparation. That's where we're currently building now. Phase 1.2 is the actual new classroom building. And then phase 2 and 3 is really doing the modernization as well as building the new admin building. Those designs are moving into construction documents. So we're looking forward to that. Going into DSA probably in the winter, spring time period. We did open the new wellness center, or I keep saying that, welcome center, a new welcome center. And so this is the new driveway into campus for visitors. The door is right down here. So if you are coming to Richmond High, you need to come to the north side on 23rd Street, and this will be the entrance that will greet you. As you can see, we came a little ways from last month, have the paving and the striping complete, as well as some new signage and new fence to be able to enclose the parking lot to the Welcome Center. Oh, wrong button. There we go. The front plaza has been removed at this point in time. This was prepared for the rain, so you can see our dirt pile has been covered. But the parking lot has also been demolished to some extent on the Richmond High campus. Oh, there we go. I had one more. So here's the parking lot. Anytime we remove debris from the site, it's sorted by material so that it's made sure that it goes correct place. And so that's what you see here. And the construction trailers have been installed. So that's the mobilization at Richmond.
Quick question, how many new classrooms are going to be built at Richmond High?
Gosh, I've got to get more numbers available for you. I do not know that off the top of my head either. It's somewhere between 20 and 30 in that building, but it's hard when both these projects are going at the same time to keep the numbers in my head.
Word.
But it does include specialty space for the Health Academy, the Law Academy, and music department.
I have a question, just going back to Kennedy with the addition of a new performance space. Do you know if there are plans to hire a theater tech to go with that performance space? I don't know.
I do not know the programmatic side of how they're looking to staff it.
Is that a school site decision or is that a decision held somewhere else?
I think we're gonna defer just because we don't know and we don't want to give the wrong information. So
Yeah,
I don't know definitively.
I don't know either. Plus I mean, we've still got a couple of years before that'll open.
We
So
have Dr. Moses with us here tonight, so. Welcome, Dr. Moses.
I'm sorry, it wouldn't let me off. Hi, good evening. I just wanted to provide a little bit of information there. Typically, when there is a theater, there is going to be a theater manager assigned as well in order to take care of the facility. But that will be a decision made once the theater is built to see what's needed in order to manage it. But I would say chances are great that there would be a manager assigned to the theater, just as there are at our other theaters throughout the district.
So luckily, we've got a couple of years to figure that out. The timeline for that completion is looking to be the fall of 28.
Before I forget, speaking of theaters, the reason I was asking about the lake lighting is that I've noticed at some of the elementary schools, they have great lighting systems, but there's no one on staff who knows how to use them anymore. So like at Nystrom, for example, said, this is an amazing lighting system. We couldn't figure out how to use it. So just kind of making sure whatever lighting system is there, you know, that
Yeah, the nice part is that there's 5 presets that are available with this particular system, and we invited one of the theater techs to come over to help us determine the most useful way to create those 5 scenes. And so we did really work with the vendor to make sure that the usability of the system was as simplistic as possible, because we know that we don't necessarily have that kind of background for the staff who work at our elementary sites. So there's some nice sliders, and then there's 5 scenes that are all preset for them. And it's just a touch of the button. All right, so then we of course have our newsletters, and I went way I didn't want to go, but okay, we'll cheat and we'll use the slide here. So those were distributed out today. And next up, we have the really awesome financial reports.
So we do have a thicker packet tonight. When we met in September, due to the holiday, we did not have the financial reports at that meeting. So we bring both sets to you tonight. So the first set of reports that you have in front of you are the data through the end of August. And we have our full suite of reports here with the project detail. But I ask if you'll join me on page 56 of the packet so that we can look at the overall projections that carry us all the way to June of 2029. On page 56. And so that'll be report 13. And so report 13's cover, right? It gives us all of the details. And then under the notes column along the right-hand side, the details follow through the report. So we can see here the big breakdowns. One of the big things that's been updated in this report, and the way to kind of read the difference, is on page 60, if we look at our variance report. So all of the major headers that you see on the cover are then repeated here on the variance report, because one of the things that we've heard over the years is that it can be really hard to decipher these reports, since they're essentially at this point reporting 26 years of the program. So on this variance report, what we have is we have what changed from July of 2025 to August of 2025. And so we can see by looking at the expenditure at the variance report here that we expended about $2.7 million in the month of August. The other thing that we did in August is we closed the books. And so we have to do accruals. Our fiscal year ends June 30. We do accruals at the end of the year. And so we can see that there was just a little bit over about 78,000 in accruals. Fair value is something that is based on our auditors. And so it's a calculation that's made. And then we also have our pooled interest earnings, right? So if you're holding the money, you make money. And so that's reflected here. Fair value is something typically you'll only see when we're closing the books. The same with accruals. So that makes this report a little bit special. One of the other big things that we see that's changed in this report is when you look under projected available funds, you can see that as we were closing the books, we also updated our multi-year cash flow and projected forward, because we know a lot more about our projects. So as we close the books, we know where we landed last year. We know a lot more about our projects that are moving forward and as they're progressing through design. So we updated our multi-year cash flow, and by updating our multi-year cash flow, we were able to make some projections on anticipated future year interest. So when you do take a look at these numbers, just keep in mind that in this report, we're projecting all the way out to June of 2029. But this is the best information we had as we close the books. We also see under board approved budget that there was board action. So the Pinole Valley High School hillside repair project is not a bond project. And so that's been moved out of the bond program. And so you can see that change in the budget that's made there.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what part of the Pinole Valley?
So there's a hillside
Yes,
repair
okay.
project that's going to be taking place. And since essentially the bond funds were used to complete the building of Pinole Valley High School, the remaining hillside repair has been moved out of the bond program.
Thank you.
And so that's the big highlight from the August report. As we kind of flip through some additional pages, we see on the next page, page 61, you have report 2. We made it a little bit bigger and easier to read, so now it's not a single sheet of paper. But these grand totals that you see on this sheet, which essentially give you a snapshot for every single site, they tie back to report 2. So all of these reports are integrated. And then on page 64, we get down to the exact expenditure detail because the purpose of the CBOC is to evaluate the expenditures of the bond program to make sure that they're used appropriately. And so we have listing here all of the warrants, so all of the checks that were issued, as well as a reconciliation of the retention, payroll, and journals that were made for August. And so that completes the reporting as of August 31. Then as you turn the page to 66, we jump into the reports that were at the end of September. So these are the reports through September 30. Tonight, I really wanted to focus on the variance reports because I have some annual variance reports to share with you that I'm really excited about. So I'll ask you to jump to page 79 of the packet, which then is our variance report that shows you, okay, here's where we finished the end of August. So where did we finish the end of September? Which essentially brings us back to current. And so you can see, since we kind of looked at the previous report in August, right? That's when we closed the books. That report's always going to have a lot more information. There are things that happen in that month that don't happen really any other time of year. So really in the month of September, you can see our expenditures jumped right up. So we had expenditures at 5.7. And so that was really the difference between August to September. And then to understand what makes up that 5.7 million, if you jump to page 83, then we have our accounts payable checklist. And this gives you line by line, essentially every dollar spent that makes up that 5.7. When we look on page 83, we can see the checks that were cut, who they were cut to, which project they belong to, all of the details associated with what month they provided services.
Sorry for interrupting, but for the record, we lost Tashiana Johnson about 7 o'clock.
Thank you. So we see here that gets us to about 5.4, almost 5.5. And so when we turn the page, we get the full reconciliation of the things that don't show up in a vendor check or a vendor warrant. And so that is the retentions, so the 5% that either we hold or we send to the bank pursuant to the public contract code, as well as small payroll costs. You can see we're pretty small, so we can only charge time if we're working on bond projects, kind of strict adherence to the Attorney General's opinion. And so you can see that's a really small cost. And so this gives you that 5.7 number that was essentially expended. And so that was really the action that took place in September. One of the things that we decided to bring forward to this meeting was the KPI report that we had prepared and we're planning to bring to the joint meeting. And we thought, you know what, they're ready. Let's just go ahead and include them in the packet and bring them forward. So the suite of reports that we're folding into now, these are essentially annual reports. So we just reviewed 2 sets of monthly reports, and now we're looking at annual reports. And so we're gonna kind of walk through the first set of annual reports. One of the things that changed is that our school district has worked on the fiscal year where we end June 30th and we start on July 1st. But in previous fiscal years, the CBOC reported on a calendar year. And that created a lot of reconciliation challenges for us in producing the reports because we have a hard stop of June 30 in our audits. We have a hard stop of June 30 in our accounting, and our budgets, et cetera. And so one of the things that was approved a couple years ago was the CBOC switch to fiscal year to be in alignment with the district's fiscal year, which really made these reports a little bit easier to produce. And so what we've brought forward to you tonight are the annual reports for fiscal year 23, 24, and 25. And so the first report is called the Bond Program KPI Summary. This is on page 85. And what this identifies for you here in this first table here, it's one of my favorites, is this is the entire program. You can see it goes all the way back to the 1998 Measure E. And so you can see here when the voters approved it, what was the amount? You can see the latest issuance date, the amount that's been issued. Then you see the tax rate per 100,000. And then we can see what bond issuances still remain, right? And now again, we got in our time machine. We went back to June 30 of 2023. We're going to hop in our time machine in a couple minutes and we're going to come to current. But we can see back at June 30 of 2023, we see at that time, we had just issued 75 million of the 575 of Measure R, right? And so this information's there, very similar to our Report 13. One of the things that you'll note is you'll see a lot of numbers referenced. And so that'll help kind of guide you through the additional details. So this is the full kind of history of the bond program as it's represented in our financials. I know this is a lot of information. And again, this goes back quite a number of years. There are definitely some notes that are made and some explanations of things. But in the interest of time, I'm going to ask that you jump with me to page 90 in the packet. And so the other thing that we did was we produced a report 13 for you that's an annual report instead of just a monthly report. And we think that this would be an incredible tool to help support the production of the CBOC annual report, because this gives you the entire year in a snapshot and it's in the format that's very similar to what we see on a monthly basis, but it gives us the entire month. Or excuse me, the entire year. So on this report here, we can see at the top that it's as of June 30 of 2023, and it is an annual report. So it's a snapshot in time. And then if we jump to the variance report for our annual report, it's on page 94 of your packet. And very similarly to the monthly report we just reviewed, it's in that same format. And it tells you exactly what happened in fiscal year 2023. It shows you where we finished at June 30 of 2022 and all of the transactions that took place kind of over the year. And so we can see by looking at this, the amount that we expended, we can see the interest in the pooled earnings, which have been separated here. We can see that back in 2023, we received basically $9.5 million from the state. And those are funds that are in our Resource 9790, funds that state funds that make our local dollars go so much further. We can see here, we got a PG&E refund. Those are always fun. So every detail's here. We can see when we look at the revenue, that the bond sales schedule moved slightly. And so all of the details of the transactions are identified here. When we look at the budgets, this identifies for you in a single snapshot all of the board approved budget changes that took place that year. So we really thought that by putting this together as an annual report, it would give all of those high level details And this is something that we plan to continue to do going forward. And so I always recommend, as you're walking through the variance report, to kind of hold the cover sheet of report 13 kind of side by side, because they are aligned, and all of the details from the cover sheet to the variance are right. That's the middle of the Oreo. That's the good stuff in the middle. So as we kind of flip through, you'll see that on page 98, it kind of starts all over again. So now we jumped in our time machine and we move forward to the end of fiscal year 2024. And so it's the same set of annual reports. We think that these would be extremely valuable in supporting, the CBOC's annual report, because it's giving you all of those financial details. And so the KPI report is here. And then if we jump to page 103, we end up at our report 13 cover sheet for fiscal year 2024, right? And so this gives us the big pieces, right? What is our cash balance? What are our projected revenues? What are our available funds, budget balance, and what do we anticipate having in June of 2029? So we've been producing with June of 2029 kind of being our end date for a number of years. As you get closer to that date, things definitely come more into focus as you have, more information. The plan is a little bit more solidified. And so on page 107, you've got your variance report from fiscal year 2023 to 2024. So we know that when we looked at our last annual report, we saw how much was expended, and we see that that grew the following year. The expenditure was about 47 million in fiscal year 2024. And we can see a breakdown of the information that came in. And so this is the information here. This will also tie to the audit report. So one of the big benefits of the financial reports in the CBOC aligning to our district's fiscal year is when you look at these figures, these are going to be the same figures that you're going to see in the audits, right? So when we look at the financial audit and the performance audit for the bond, it has a fiscal year end. And so one of the items of note on here is we can see that there was a prior year audit adjustment. And so whenever you see something a little unusual, you go, okay, well, what happened there? Like there's a story there, what happened? And when you're looking at an annual report, the answer is always going to be in the audit. So these are really tied together in a way to really kind of tell the annual picture, which is, again, something we plan on doing at every fiscal year end. And so big finale, here we go. You've been hanging in there with me. I really, really appreciate it. We are going to jump to our final flip. All my tags weren't in the right places. I apologize. You know what's so weird is I feel like my pages are out of order here. So something might have gotten mixed up in the packet. So just for fun, you're going to turn to page 116 because our variance report ended up in front of a cover sheet, but that's okay. So we can see that when we closed the books for fiscal year 2025, so that was at June 30, and big shout out to the team, business services for all of their support. We close the books. It's always really exciting. Labor Day holds a whole new meaning when you start to work in school finance. It's a whole new holiday. But we can see here, so this is it. We closed the books. It was official in September. You can see here, this is the true action that took place in the bond program for fiscal year 2025. We're currently engaged with the bond financial auditor, who's starting to work through the bond audit for 2025. And then we'll be working with the performance auditor soon. And so they're going to be pouring over all the details now that everything's final. but we have the annual reports for you here. And so hopefully this is really helpful. And I know it was a lot to bring to one meeting, but we wanted to meet our commitment of the monthly reports. And since these were ready, we really wanted to bring them forward. I'd be happy to, at a future meeting, spend a little bit more time on the KPI report and kind of really walk you through that. But for tonight, I really wanted to kind of give that broader picture and kind of share this resource because we really do think that it's a wonderful way to get that annual snapshot. So thanks for hanging in there with me through all the page turns. Yeah.
Can I ask, what is LAIF interest?
Absolutely. So that there's an investment that's done with the county, and I know Dr. Moses will help me if I'm not doing a good job, but when you're holding cash, you can invest your fund.
Okay.
And so that is what the LAIF is. So that is interest earned on LAIF.
And what are pooled earnings?
Pooled interest earnings. So when we're holding the dollars, the county shares that back. I see Dr. Moses popping up. I'm sure she'll have a much better explanation. But yeah, go ahead, Dr. Moses.
Yeah, I can't answer the pooled earnings. I have to look that one up. But the LAIF is the county invests all of the money that's held in county treasury, and that's just our portion of it. So we don't have any active role in deciding how the money is invested, but we do benefit from the county's ability to invest those pooled resources from across the county. I hope that helps. And I'll look up the pooled resources as well.
I hope they have that invested in like a safe investment, right? They're not putting it in.
Bitcoin.
Right.
That is a great question. I've never asked those in-depth questions, but it is government monies and there are rules attached to how you invest that. So
That scares me more.
Yeah, no, it has to be invested in risk-free instruments like treasuries, bonds, so that's I wouldn't worry about it, but it's the law for sure.
Yeah, my assumption is it's safe.
Very. I had a quick question. When on the May report, you have the spending to date by site, and you had this column, the one column that's not in this report anymore was original budget. And for like Fairmont, it had 10,971,000, and then it approved as of 25, like 6.6. And here you've got the same number, 6.6. So how did it go from 10 million approved to 6.6 approved?
So the board approves any budget increase or decrease. And so there was a column that was previously on report 2 that kind of had a footnote. That was a moment in time based on a report that was produced before I was working here. And so it didn't have a date associated to it. And so we couldn't reconcile back to that date when they had that original budget. But essentially, anytime the board approves a change to the budget, that then becomes the new budget. And so we've been tracking all of the board approved budget changes back to October of 2016. As part of the forensic accounting investigation, there was a recommendation about tracking that information, and we actually created a whole new preseason form called the site budget authorization form. And so essentially to provide greater transparency anytime there was a change in a board approved budget. And so since I've been working here for the district, we've tracked every single board approved change. But I believe that change predates the 2016 facilities master plan. And so I may not be able to perfectly pinpoint that for you.
Okay.
Question, and then I think this is a typo. Page 116. I think you meant to say Michelle Obama instead of Michael.
I sure did. Yes, thank you so much.
And then Yeah, and I see a lot of these are allocated to different schools, but what is the central budget increase?
So central budget is the budget that isn't assigned to an individual project. And so, for example, that would be salary costs, that would be project management costs, that would include we do notices in the paper. So anything that's kind of like centrally done. The auditors would be included there. And so this 11 million is a board approved budget on May 28th. And so part of this backup, the reason why we put the date is we can always go back and read. I believe the $11 million, it's multi-year. So it's not just a 1 year of central budget, but because we're projecting forward, it includes multiple years. And so I can pull the detail of that board award date and share that with you. But yeah, that's a multi-year central budgeted cost to cover central support services for the bond program.
Don is looking at me.
No,
like,
no,
Can I ask another question?
I don't want to say anything and interrupt you.
no,
This is what you're here
good.
for.
Let's see, page 105, there's the state facility grants.
Mm-hmm.
And I think on page, I'm missing on it, but it says, based on approval,
Mm-hmm.
how soon do you know if you've received those state grants? Is it a year before, or it depends? I see Ellen is laughing. So
we just love
it
the
might be
predictability of state grants.
Yeah.
The coffers.
So the good news is, in November of last year, which I gotta tell you, that feels like a lot more than a year ago. In November of last year, voters approved Prop 2, which put additional funds at the state level. And so we're able to apply for those funds once we have a DSA approved set of plans. And so you essentially stand in line for the dollars. The last big round of funding that we did, I think we've stood in line for up to 10 years. What's incredible though, for example, is when we submit the application as soon as we can. And we submit an anticipated grant award amount. And so the best example I can give you is that we applied for Pinole and we submitted a $16.7 million grant application for Pinole Valley High School. While it was a number of years later, we were awarded almost 24 million. And so the exact amount of the grant is something that gets worked out as you get closer, as they kind of work their way through the list. The other thing that's really excited about these grant applications is they are above the line, meaning there was enough money approved in Prop 2 that these kind of stand in a funding queue. But the state, very similarly to us, the voters have approved it. They have to go and then issue, et cetera. And so when the state does reach out to us, then we work really closely with them. The other thing that's really exciting is Prop 2 did some new things with the funding that I think is really going to create an advantage for our district. So we do believe that it'll be additional dollars that we'll receive. And so as we receive these state dollars, and to date, we've received like over 220 million kind of in the life of the program. We put them in 9790. So we have what we call our non-bond resource. And so we track all of our bond measures separately as is required. And then when we have interest earnings, when we have state funds, we can put that in 9790. So we still use it in accordance with a very long list of rules on both tax compliance and bond compliance and grant compliance, et cetera. But we're able to use those dollars to make our projects go even further. And so a big part of being able to move the Siege project from a modernization to a rebuild was using state dollars to do that. So.
And just so that you know, California is one of a few states but has to have the voters vote to re-up that fund. Most states, it happens like as part of their allocation process to, build that pool, but California, that's not.
So how do you plan with that unpredictability of timing? Like in the case of Knoll, was the project just on hold, like until this funds came in?
Well, we
or-
use our local dollars to move the projects forward, and then when the funds are received, then we're
Okay.
able to use them kind of at that time. And so when we're looking at these reports, not only are we looking now, more than 25 years backwards, but we're also at this point looking 4 years forward. And kind of anticipating when we may receive those dollars. And then we just keep an eye on the list. So at the state level, the Office of Public School Construction, and then it's the State Allocation Board that does the approvals. And so we definitely kind of keep an eye on it, and then they'll reach out to us. But we do include it on our cover sheet. So as we look on page 105, as you noted, it's note 4. So when we look at our cover sheet that's on page 103, you can see we kind of keep it down here as like an estimated below the line. So when we project our cash balance through June of 2029, it does not include those dollars, because while we're standing in line and we anticipate that we'll receive them, until they're real dollars, we don't include them in the plan. But we do note them so that we can keep an eye on them. And as we have additional projects that could qualify, we're gonna go stand in line some more.
So it's like tooth fairy money, like you could get it at any point.
I promise you, when we get close to getting it, you'll know, we'll be super giddy. We'll be sitting here very excited like we are when we're like, I went to DSA. Like we get very excited.
Because you do know, like, you're like, hey, it's starting to wiggle. I think it might be coming soon.
Yes.
Because as it does get closer, there's more paperwork flurries back and forth and all sorts of things that happen. So we do know when it's getting really close, but there's a long time in between where you're like, come on, Mueller, are you coming in yet? We knew it was in the list, and sometime around 13, I was gonna get it, but you don't know when.
At some point, yeah. My last question is on page 83. So we talked about the board approved central expenses. Is this the same as the operational support services?
Yes,
Okay, got it.
absolutely.
Just for clarity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, good, give you a chance. I'm not asking you to do it right now, but you get home and say, I'm bored, I have nothing better to do. Take a look at the cover page of each of those KPI reports. On the right-hand side, you'll see interest paid. Right now, about $750 million in interest that we've paid so far. A lot of money.
What's the yield? What's the yield, the cost of the funds?
I mean, the interest rate that we're paying?
Yeah, is that in the reports anywhere?
That's a good question, but I don't know about the interest rate that we're paying, because it changes all frequently, because we resell the bonds, renew them, to get a better rate.
So we do have a special board policy. So we have an annual kind of refunding policy because we do have such a large program. And we do take our fiduciary responsibility really seriously. So we actually have a board policy, and most districts don't. And so as part of our board policy, there's an annual review of the entire program to see if there are any refunding opportunities. We're actually on the eve of that. When we did our last bond sale for Measure R, when you're doing an issuance, it's also a great opportunity to do a refunding because you can save on your cost of issuance expenses. And so when we did the first 250, well, it was our second sale because we did 75, but when we did the 250 of Measure R, we also did a refunding at the same time. And then ultimately, anytime we do that, there's a full presentation that comes forward. The board gives authorization for us to do it. based on what's been evaluated, and then we go through the process, and then we come back to say what the savings have been, kind of speaking to that particular sale. And so we're actually on the eve of our annual report. So KNN is our municipal advisor, and so they'll be doing their annual report probably in November, but definitely before the end of the year. We'd be happy to bring that information here, and they really kind of walk through the complete program and kind of their review of, are there potential candidates, keeping in mind kind of our overall cash flow analysis for all of our projects, when we anticipate we'll need to do our next issuance, kind of keeping an eye on the market and other things. So we're happy to bring that here to the CBOC as well, so that, they can address any questions.
This is one of those times where my blindness kicks in. I can't read the numbers on my screen. I can't read the numbers on that screen. If you look on
The only one.
yeah, a lot of that going around these days. If you take a look on the far right, about mid-page, was that 700? You just,
I'm sorry, I was trying
was
to.
that set? I can't, but maybe somebody else can read it. 700, how many million? 784. So I downplayed it. It's more than three quarters of a billion. That's the interest that we paid so far.
Since the program began.
Since the program began, yes.
So, yeah, I mean, the interest rates are probably pretty darn good. I mean, it's probably more secure than a government, right? Government is doing right now. I mean, they're all secured by your property,
Yeah, I mean,
and they're all secured property taxes. Like 1% delinquency in collection of
Yeah.
property taxes.
so we actually Richmond had a city manager a couple of years ago, Laura Sneidman, that when she was city manager of Pacifica, they filed bankruptcy. And the debtors came and repossessed most of the buildings, public buildings in the city. Yeah, the city all of a sudden had to pay rent to their debtor for the city hall. And that's what can happen in a worst case scenario when something like that happens.
But that has nothing like that would ever happen in what we're doing here.
Well, I don't think so.
No, because they've got.
No, your house, they've got your house as collateral. That's what I'm saying.
All right, any questions, any comments?
Last question, so can you just remind for measure D and measure J, because there's
Mhm.
still 2.5 million and 77.5 million not issued yet
Mhm.
respectively. Which projects are those? And so are those still ongoing?
So it's a great question. So one of the things that's identified in the note, so if you turn to which report are you on? You're on page 98. So if we go to page 99, there is a note 4 that speaks specifically to Measure J. And so Measure J is from 2025. And we can see the note here that on issuing bonds, the district must certify that the tax rate will not exceed $60 per 100,000 of property value. And so there is $77 million remaining to be issued for Measure J. In order to issue those, currently, we estimate that those bonds cannot be sold until about 2034 because of the tax rate limitation. And that future year has remained relatively stable this entire time. It really hasn't moved. And so it's at that time that we would be able to do basically a general obligation issuance for those dollars. And that's really when it would become available. It is possible to access it sooner, but it would be at a significantly higher cost to taxpayers. So there are different ways to do it. But historically, that's not something that we've done because we understand that it's a significantly higher cost to taxpayers. And so those Measure J dollars, that 77 million we've known, are basically sitting out in that future year. And at that time, we would be able to sell them very similarly to how we've done kind of the historical issuances. And then at that point, those dollars would be available.
Okay, and is that the same for Measure D, the 2.5?
Yeah, so measure, you can see that really is like $2,500.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a
25.
tiny amount of
Okay.
money. And so we usually really just speak to the future issuance of J. And so, yeah, so, and then we have the 250 left for Measure On.
Does your group do any projection on property value increases?
So there
Collections,
is,
increased collections.
so there's kind of an assumed kind of conservative rate for assessed valuation that's done. But I definitely think we should let them come to describe a lot more of those details.
Who is them?
Yeah.
Our municipal advisor can, my apologies.
I have one question about the AP checklist is where we see some of the change orders documented. Is that right generally or no?
So you
Where do those
probably,
pop up?
so you probably see the change orders documented on the project status reports. Which, because what you would see on the AP checklist is you would see the amount we paid in the pay application, which would
But it wouldn't be.
include, so.
It wouldn't
Yeah.
distinguish it as a
So
change
if you
order.
would like to have a report of change orders by project, we'd be happy to provide it. We do take all change orders to board. And so, we have that information for every, board agenda where we've taken it forward. And then for the auditors, we do put together kind of a fiscal snapshot of all change orders that were approved within the year. So if that's a particular set of information that you'd like, we'd be happy to bring that information forward.
Yeah, I think I would be interested in that. In any change order, every change order, no matter what the value goes to board or is it
We
threshold?
do. So by public contract code, what it says is that the board shall approve any change order essentially greater than 10% of the contract value. What we do is we take every single change order to the board, and we have a table that goes to the board that identifies really the original contract amount. It identifies the change order. It also identifies the reason code for the change order. So was it unforeseen? Is it required by a utility? Kind of like a agency required? Was it district requested? Was it errors and omissions? So we put the reason code for the change order. We also provide a description of the change order and the crises, and then we provide the cumulative value. So that you can see the individual value and percent for each change order, as well as how that affects the overall contract cumulatively. In addition to kind of going above and beyond the requirements of the public contract code out of transparency, we also very specifically with our board, and I'm not sure that I've ever seen this with another district, is anytime a change order is going to exceed that 10% cumulative, or anytime a change order is greater than 250,000, we bring that as a separate item to the board and as an action item and really present the item to speak really about kind of hitting that 10% or having such a large value. Our other change orders, we actually even separate bond from non-bond change orders. And so if it's less than 250,000 or if it's less than 10% cumulative, it's on our consent agenda for the board.
Okay. Is there any law that requires all change orders to be approved?
Well, I would probably argue that the ed code says ultimately the board has to approve every contract. And so ultimately they do need to approve it. But I would say the way that we are reporting the change orders to the board provides a lot more transparency about the individual item as well as cumulative across the project. And that was another thing that really came out of the forensic accounting investigation, was just really trying to bring a lot of additional information forward to the board anytime we were asking them to approve something, so that they really understood not just that one slice of the pie, but the total pie for every project. And so it was really after the forensic accounting investigation that our change order table looked so different.
But there's no disputes.
Disputes meaning?
Just like any other construction project, there's a change order and there's a dispute and there's no disputes.
Yeah, so there disputes take place, those happen.
Lawsuits.
Yeah, so, but ultimately, anytime there's going to be a change to the contract, be it scope, be it time, or be it money, it has to be codified in a change order. Very rarely do you see, sometimes there may be a settlement. But it's been a long time, since that's taken place. And so, essentially the resolution of the dispute is probably the change order.
That very rarely is the first amount submitted, the amount that we end up paying.
So is it report two, or which report is actually gonna show the change orders? Is it in this packet or
It's not in this packet. So what I can do is I'd be happy to bring it to, next month's meeting. And I can bring an example of kind of how it looks when it goes forward to the board, and then I'd be happy to bring a report, the change orders like for last fiscal year, or for any other kind of time period.
Including the reasons. Great.
Yep, and that's included. So every time we take it to the board, we identify that.
Have you experienced a greater number of change orders with specific vendors or contractors? Or is that not really an issue?
I think change orders are too complicated and wrapped into what kind of scope we're building that you wouldn't really be able to compare it from one contractor to another. Because it really depends on, I mean, the grand majority of our change orders are really associated with unforeseen conditions. We struggle with what's below ground and what kind of record we have of what's below ground, and our soil condition in general. It's no mystery that we have a lot of clay. And when clay gets wet, it changes size and shape, and it becomes difficult to work with when you're trying to do trenches and foundations. So those kind of things have traditionally been, especially as far as cost goes, the bigger cost items for our change orders than some of the other categories that we have. We do have design change orders frequently. As you go through construction, no design is 100% perfect. And when you get into construction, you realize some things are just either not coordinated, or the thickness of the material wasn't necessarily fully considered. And while those have maybe by number the same amount as our unforeseen, the value of those are definitely not as much. The most costly ones we have really related to our underground conditions or our soil.
Doesn't the weather related items play a big part in the change orders?
It does. Weather can also be a component of that soil condition component. And then time, right? So time is something, when you're in construction, you have to pay when you spend more time. There's certain parameters that is when it's the district's responsibility versus the contractor's responsibility. And so that can be a piece there as well.
I was running a project in one of the refineries where the people designing the small bore gas piping to the furnace didn't talk to the people designing the 5-foot rectangular ductwork occupying the same space. So that caused a massive cost difference there and change order. And so, the attorneys were involved with that one there, especially since it was one engineering firm making the same mistake. Just these people weren't talking to these people. It's never simple. So, do we have any further comments from the CBOC or anybody from the public?
I don't see any hands.
Okay. Going on to the consent items here, and just very briefly, item G, the records request log. Tanya asked about it last time, so I have not been including it in the packet because there has not been a change to it in more than a year, since September of last year. This time I put it in there just so you can see what, as an example. So you again, get bored, take a look at page 124 and study it. Okay. Item H is the meeting calendar. I is the rolling attendance log. And we're gonna pull item J just a moment because somebody wants to discuss that. But item K was a copy of the report made to the public and the board from 10:08. If there are no questions on these items, with the exception of the meeting minutes,
I wanted to raise something up on the calendar, if I may.
all right.
We did reach out and we were looking at a potential reschedule date for the joint board CBOC meeting, and we did talk about October 29th. I don't have confirmation for that date yet. One of the things that I wanted to propose, November is a short month. We'll be here. But for a lot of our families, there's a week of no school, and there's a lot of travel. We also have Veterans Day, and then depending with elementary, parent-teacher conferences, etc. And so one of the ideas was the Wednesday that's available in November is November 12th. Because there's a board meeting on the 5th, and there's a board meeting on the 7/19th. Yeah. So, there you go. I just looked at that. And so November 12th, it is the day after Veterans Day, but it is a Wednesday. But we will have just opened up late. And so we were thinking November 12th might be a really good day to have the joint board CBOC meeting and to host it at Lake. And we could start the meeting by doing a tour of the TKK facilities, seeing the new NPR, the kitchen, the space, the play structures, kind of how Lake has come together. The only area that wouldn't be open would be the turf and the walking circle at that point, but we could kind of start the meeting that way and then just have it at Lake that night. And so, and then because that's Wednesday, and then the CBOC meeting is the following Monday, is it maybe one meeting? And so just a couple of ideas that I wanted to propose and throw out there for the month of November, just knowing how tight it is in November. And so if you guys had any kind of feedback or thoughts about that, I'd be happy to share that back with the superintendent's office. We just think it might be a really nice way to take a site visit and a meeting and put it all together and gather to kind of see the work and really connect it to the different presentations. So just wanted to bring that forward to all of you tonight.
I will try to reach out to the entire CBOC and see what their thoughts are on that.
What's the agenda on a joint meeting? How
So,
much is it split, half and half, or what is it?
so there was an agenda setting meeting with Mr. Gosney, and it was President Reckler and Trustee Inyana. And so there was an agenda that was put together for the joint meeting. The date is being rescheduled, but the agenda itself was put together and shared out. So I'm sure if everyone was amenable to it, we could just add some time to kind of start with the sidewalk and then continue on to the agenda item. And then we'd be happy to bring, the reports would be available. But we wouldn't propose to add another agenda item. We would just meet all of our commitments for reporting for the month so that you would have all that information. If it was consolidated into one meeting in November. So just as a thought.
Is the time set, or is there a preference on time for that meeting if we did it at Lake?
So I think the time was always planned to be 6:30 because that seems to be the time when we have a quorum with both sets. And so what was proposed for the joint meeting was 6:30 to 8:30.
One of the things I'm concerned about is that time of year, 6:30 is dark.
She's amazing. She does prior proper planning for everything. So she's already tested it out a little bit.
Right. Well, one of the requirements that we have is any place that has a path of travel, you need to have 1 foot candle worth of lighting. And so what our area of refuge in the end of this project is going to be on the turf field. So the playground spaces have 1 foot candle of lighting, which isn't a lot, but it's enough to see what's going on. And all of the walkways at Lake have exterior lighting that will be more than sufficient to be able to experience the space.
Just pointing out, in working in heavy construction, you know when the sun comes up, you know when it goes down.
Right.
We work, but for this time of year, well, actually, for every day, the sun sets 1 minute earlier. 1 minute. Okay, so whatever you thought you saw today, we're talking about almost a full month from now.
Right.
Yeah. And so we're talking the sun setting 25 minutes earlier.
It might not be the best time for exterior pictures, but it certainly is safe to walk around, and the parking lot has lighting as well. So you'll be able to get into the buildings. The pictures inside will be much better than the pictures outside, but you will be able to make out what's going on around you on the exterior.
Daylight savings is November 2nd, so it'll be essentially 5 o'clock sunset.
Right.
5:02.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be dark.
One thing that excites me about a school site CBOC meeting is the potential to invite community members and parents from that school. Is that a possibility to do kind of a direct promotion or some type of, partnering with the principal to identify some of the folks that have contribute are engaged on campus?
The door, it's just the wind, so sorry, I'm
Oh.
looking past you just because of the door, so we did check the calendar, I believe it's a minimum
Casper.
day that day, and it's definitely always a great opportunity. I'm just gonna turn it up. We think a lot of people would love to come, and then, it being a joint meeting, it's a good opportunity, we're talking about a lot of great things. And just a great opportunity for everyone to see the site, because we essentially would have just opened it, the previous week, and so.
Giant carrot to get people to come in. Right?
This would be the first opportunity probably for our parents, unless they were there for the parent-teacher conference and somehow managed to wander over the NPR. This would be the first opportunity for them to be able to see that space, and certainly the first opportunity to get the behind the scenes of the kitchen. If anybody was interested in it. I know our food service group, we took them over there to check out the equipment and things, and they were very excited about the design. Not that it's like anything super special, but it is one of the nicer kitchens that we have built.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Brandon. Say we did want to do like an invitation flyer. What would the process for that be? Can we create the flyer, then it goes to Peach Jar? What?
Yeah,
would you say?
we'd be happy to partner with communications, to distribute something out. I'm assuming, Parent Square would be one of the strategies, working closely with the school site as well, and just saying, come check it out. I think it really kind of connects. We do a lot of financial reports, we do a lot of audits. The CBOC is really technical, but the critical work, that all of you do, this is what it does. It creates learning spaces, and it creates gathering spaces, and I think it would be wonderful. And as more opportunities come up to, I would say, take our show on the road and have a meeting or two, we'll bring our trusty owl, and hit a job site or two. I know it can be hard sometimes for people to come to site visits. And so when we can take our meetings safely to a school site to have them, I think it's a great opportunity to kind of connect this giant packet with, right, what happens out in the field.
Yeah, to be in the space that this money creates.
So Melissa, I think the answer was we do a meeting together with comms or, sorry, what was the answer?
Well, if you guys want to create the flyer,
Okay.
that's amazing, and then we'll pass it to comms. We also could do it. I mean, we're happy to partner and provide that additional support. I do think this could be a really great opportunity to bring people together and, you know, talk a little bit more about what the CBOC does.
Thank you.
And Lynn wrote in the comments, we have to consider work schedule as well. 6:30 PM seems like the best.
School would have been in session that day?
Yes.
Yeah, but they'll be out much earlier. Wednesday's a minimum day, so I think they're gone by about, well, regular school is done by about 2.
But that's why 6:30 is also good because after school program is at 6.
Anything else? Okay, back to the consent calendar item with the exception of measure J. There's no questions or problems, which is accepted, those items.
Don't have a quorum.
Sorry,
You don't have a quorum here.
we don't have a quorum, whether we accept a calendar. I mean,
I don't think you can.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I don't think you can.
And we won't consider any of these items and we'll just defer all these items to a later date. Definitely on the minutes, we can't do anything on till a later date. Okay, we were going to discuss item L, the annual reports. Daciana was supposed to give us a little bit of report. I don't know, Brendan, if you have anything to add on that, since she's not here anymore?
I don't have anything to add right now on the annual reports.
Okay,
I did send her my section this morning.
all
So
right. I asked more than once for her to share with me the items, what was included on those little slips of paper. And in fact, just a few days ago, she said, get back to you tomorrow morning. And I just haven't got anything. Otherwise, I would have put it all in here. All I have is my little slip of paper, right? Right there. So I don't even know what was assigned to everybody, but it'll come up at a later time. All right, item M, site visits. I just wanted to report that we did have a site visit of Richmond High School. And several of our members joined in. We got a lot of hand waving. We're gonna do this over here, and we're gonna wrap the building around over there. But it was good to see see the site before they started some of the demolition, especially outside. Okay. Any questions or public comment on the site visit?
I don't see any.
All right. Yeah. Bear with me, I need to write a few things down.
We got to
Okay.
meet the awesome music teacher there.
Andrew Wilkie.
Nice.
Okay. Item O is a chairperson report, and bear with me, please. This is gonna be a little bit lengthy. We all know that as a result of the actions of Board President Reckler, Trustees Smith Folds, and Gonzalez Hoy, I've been banned essentially from being a part of the CBOC for 2, possibly 3 years. Now is not the time to go into much details about why they felt the CBOC, the district, and the community would be better off if I have little to no impact on the oversight of the bond program. I am, however, going to provide a brief historical lesson and spell out exactly what their actions meant. About a dozen years ago, we had a prominent CBOC member that was seeking renewal of his membership. He and I served as co-chairs of the audit subcommittee. He would take out quarter-page ads in the newspapers advocating to voters that they should reject any and all of the district's bond and parcel tax measures. He was the chief business officer for Making Waves Academy, a charter school, where he advocated that the district students attend charter schools instead of district schools. He dummied up a CBOC letterhead using his own home address, his own email address, and his own phone number. He used that letterhead to send out a 27-page letter to newspapers and elected officials explaining how bad the bond program was being run. He led the effort to get the County Board of Education to allow Hercules to secede from the WCC-USD and join the John Swett Unified School District. The county agreed, but once he and his friends were told that they would have to pay back the $300+ million already spent on the schools for Hercules, John Swett made it crystal clear that they did not want to take on that kind of debt, especially since none of the students and Rodeo, Crockett, and Port Costa would ever use those schools. When his application came before the board, every single member of the CBOC, about 21 of them, rose to advocate not reappointing him. Up until 12 days ago, he was the only CBOCer who had ever been rejected by the board, until me. I was and am, of course, unhappy and a little bit bitter about being so wholly rejected by those three board members, by staff, and by some of the CBOCers. As you can imagine, I don't think any of us likes to be rejected and thrown away as someone unworthy of listening to or even being around. I was advised by one of you to not take it personal when it's extremely personal. It couldn't be more personal. I sat on the board meeting for the last hour or so, being the only member of the public still around. At 11:16 p.m., the item was called. There was no discussion, no explanations from why 3 of the 5 board members wanted me gone. And even though I was signed up to speak, there was no public comment offered by the board president. They went straight to the vote. From calling the item to revoicing the vote, it took just 47 seconds. When people replayed the video clip, one member of the community even commented back that it appeared that one trustee even sported a smirk as the vote was cast. Before offering some advice, let me spend a minute to point out that my exile will now mean this will be my last regularly scheduled meeting, not just as chair of the CBOC, but as a rank and file member. In reality, applying won't be an option for me for at least 2 to 3 years, reapplying. It is unlikely that you will get a newly drafted set of bylaws that will delineate how the CBOC is to conduct their affairs and how to protect their independence. It is unlikely that you and any new CBOC members will get the kind of mentoring and training that you want and need. By the way, don't put any blind faith and trust in CBOC. There's enough time right now for me to go into the details about that, but they're not necessarily what you may think they are. You likely will return to agenda packets put together persons outside the CBOC where you really need to ask whether the best interests of the community are being placed above the best interest of the district. I won't be allowed to ask for site visits where the representatives of the community can seek or ask questions about exactly how the next $700 million of their tax dollars will be spent. And what kind of minutes will be your legacy? Whatever voice I had here at the CBOC, and even as a civilian speaking before the board, will be blunted. The message sent by those 3 board members that night, and this goes to staff as well, was that there's absolutely nothing I can say or do that they want to listen to. After 57 years with the district, I've been erased. After October 31st, I will be invisible. Between now and then, I'll just be here, and then again, not really here. Who amongst you here on the CBOC, on the board, and even with the staff has any kind of historical knowledge about the bond program, about the forensic accounting investigation, about the facilities master plan, and so much more? I'm not talking about staff's recollections because, quite frankly, they were on the other side of all this, so their recollections might be different than mine. Someone that was right in the middle of it. Will you know what kind of questions to ask? Will you accept what you're being told by staff and by the board as being the gospel and being everything you need to know? Please ask yourselves whether you believe that the board and district staff really want a strong oversight of how the last $700 million will be spent. Now for a bit of advice. I've spent the last 55 years in senior management on various committees and projects. I was appointed by Congress and served for 13 years as the chair of a committee advising the Department of Navy on the environmental restoration of the Point Mullady Naval Fuel Depot. We were held up by the Secretary of Defense nationwide on how a committee should be run. I've served on numerous city, school, and district and community committees to work for the benefit of our community. I was a part of a congressional roundtable appointed by Congressman Ron Dellums. Served in senior leadership positions in my union for 55 years, where even now I'm the second most important member of that union. By the way, we're the largest, most powerful building trades union west of Chicago. I was in senior management positions on billion-dollar construction projects, building and maintaining oil refineries here in the Bay Area. And now comes the advice that stems from more than a half century in management. First, this isn't the TV show where the now president made millions of dollars telling good and decent people, you're fired. In the real world, it's a much better practice to take the employee that you may have a problem with and work with that person to correct whatever mistakes are being encountered. There are always exceptions, of course, failing a drug test, sexual harassment, theft, safety violations. The errant employee is a known commodity, whereas the replacement is totally unknown. Take, for instance, whomever it might be, if they can find someone that they appoint to fill the current and upcoming vacancies. How long will it take to train them, to educate them, to mentor them to the point where they will be a valuable asset to the bond program and the community? And who amongst you will do that? So those of you who have joined in the past 6 months or a year, how much do you know compared to how much you need or want to know? To that extent, one of the trustees graciously wrote to me, and I quote, "I did hear serious concerns from CBOC members, community partners, and staff regarding your approach in recent months, your interactions, tone, and demands of staff." Keep in mind that the words from this trustee, that there were multiple CBOC members reaching out to this trustee, multiple community partners, and at least one of the two staff members we deal with. They didn't just have problems with me, but they made the effort to reach out to the trustees to voice their complaints. Did any of these people, including the three trustees who voted to throw me away, make any effort to address their concerns with me? No. Am I such an intimidating person that I invoke fear? God, I really hope not. How am I to address the demands of staff if I have no idea what those demands were? I asked for the suite of financial reports that the CBOC had been asking for years. I asked for site visits, and I asked that the CBOC be kept in the loop about public meetings and events. What else did I demand that was way out of line? I'll never know, and maybe neither will you. How is anybody supposed to correct a problem if they're never made aware that the problem exists? Take the time, make the effort to reach out to help make things better. Don't confuse real life with a TV show thinking you'll make millions off of telling another human being you're fired. I have to wonder why anyone from the community would ask to serve on a district committee or to volunteer their time and efforts. Wasn't it just a meeting or two ago that you asked me to put on the joint meeting agenda a discussion about the lack of respect community members and employees seem to experience when dealing with the board and the district staff and employees? I tried to be as inclusive as I could, accommodating each and every one of the CBOC and even staff. I'm not asking for a response here, but please be honest with yourselves when you mentally answer this question. When I have reached out with questions to both CBOCers and staff, and if they were here, to board members asking opinions and even polling, how many times did you respond to my emails and texts? How many of you shared with me a mailing address for a phone number? I'd use my own resources, but even that was nearly half of you were as being difficult to reach out to. Trustee Reckler has made her feelings about me clear for several years, so I sought out from the other two trustees that voted me off the island, and one actually responded, and I'm thankful for that. Accusations were made, and when I asked for clarifications, possibly to explain or rebut them, there was no response. I heard nothing from the other trustee. When I asked each of you, could you tell me about your issues with me? I heard from one of you with comments. I'm thankful for that and I got a promise from two others to meet me this Friday morning so I can learn their thoughts. Aside from those three, I heard nothing. Again, how is anybody to learn how to be a better person when they're met with silence? I asked those two trustees for them to agendize a reconsideration of the vote. So at the very least, there could be a public discussion and the public might weigh in. One trustee flat refused and the other did not respond. One last piece of free advice. Earlier in the meeting, understanding reports, I spoke of the need for the CBOC to be an independent body. The Ed Code and Prop 39 ballot language even spells that out. Part of that report pointed out the fallacy of having the very people whose actions are being overseen by the CBOC deciding who gets to oversee their actions. And when a couple of hours later, the most active overseer is fired by the board. Kind of ironic, isn't it? Next time you ask questions, next time you speak out, next time you ask to speak to the board about disrespect, keep in mind that what they did to me, they can just as easily do to you. Concluding here, the room is full of youngsters, so I wouldn't expect you all to recall back in 1962 when former Vice President Richard Nixon lost his senatorial bid. In his concession speech, he famously told the crowd, well, you won't have Richard Nixon to kick around anymore. I don't plan on going anywhere, but this quote seems so fitting right now. End of chair report. Any questions or comments from the board or the CBOC or the community? Hearing none. Next item on there is future agenda topics. Do we have any?
I'd like to suggest we maybe reduce the number of meetings annually. I don't think I'm just thinking it's not probably necessary to meet every month, given the nature of the information that's presented and the long term, it takes quite a time for things to change on the financials. They don't just change in a month. Maybe on a quarterly basis or every other month, but it's just for discussion. It's an idea.
I will put that on the list. Anything else? This future agenda item?
Measure J. Who's that?
Measure J. Okay, anything else? All right. With nothing else, we are,
Minutes. You're gonna call for minutes?
no, so we can't do anything with them. I deferred it already.
Okay.
Along with all the consent items. Yeah.
Do they count it on?
Just, if there, any action, you have to have a quorum here. So we just defer it. You can bring your questions up with the new chair. Okay. It's 8:15, we are adjourned.